Well, hi everyone. Today I'm going to be bringing you a story about a parking garage collapse in Denver. This occurred Monday afternoon around 3:30 p.m. local time on Monday, March 23rd. I'm recording this video on Thursday, March 26th. Fortunately, no one was killed or injured. It's a miracle, quite frankly. There's a nearby office building that the people there park in this parking garage. It's 2 stories, a lower level and an upper level. And the upper level collapsed into the lower level, crushed at least 2 vehicles. And I'm guessing that people there have to work a regular schedule because it's, again, if it was more variable or it happened a little bit later, say at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, it would have been utter disaster because of the 50 vehicles that were parked there. I would imagine most people didn't carpool, so it was probably upwards of 40 people working there who had parked in the building. So this is what we know so far. You can see this video from a local news station. I have a link in the description, but complete rupture of the upper parking deck. Reportedly, it's due to a structural failure of a girder supporting this parking garage. Here's one of these workers talking about how they heard this loud crash and they were told what had happened with the parking garage. As of today's recording, these people's vehicles are still stranded in the parking garage. Local officials will be coordinating with the property owner to get some temporary shoring for this structure. Obviously, they don't want to cause further collapse, and it all needs to be stabilized before they can even think about getting people in there to remove vehicles. I imagine most of these are going to have to be removed using a crane and lifting them out. So this is the area we're talking about, metropolitan Denver. It's just north of the Cherry Creek Dam. And I used to do inspections for this dam for the Corps of Engineers who owns this project at Cherry Creek. So if you want to check out that video, there's a link in the description. But this building and parking garage was reportedly constructed in 1974 and underwent major renovation in 2009. At this point, it's not clear if there were any renovations done to the parking garage. And right now, there's no details about the nature of the construction of this garage, but I suspect it was a post-tension structure. And here's a picture of a post-tension parking garage slab before the concrete has been placed. And you see these blue sheaths that cover the steel tendons. And the type of construction involves casting the concrete, and after it's cured for, say, about a week or longer, then jacking loads are applied to the steel tendons and then locked off. So it's the tension in those members that provides a lot of the structural stability for these parking garages. Years ago, I worked for a company that would support inspection and construction of projects like parking garages. And one of the services offered for this company I worked for was ground penetrating radar. And contractors putting together these garages would retain us to use ground penetrating radar to identify where they could drill holes for piping penetrations. And we quit offering that service at my suggestion to the business owner because what we had is a very rigid procedure of field data collection, verification by an engineer in the office, was all circumvented by apparently the contractor looking over the technician's shoulder and deciding, yeah, that spot's clear. And they would drill holes before we did all the review. And of course, drilling into a post-tension member is very hazardous and very dangerous to the stability of the structure. So just got out of that business altogether. And that reminds me, and again, I don't know if this particular garage was post-tension. I would suspect that it was, given its age of construction. It was a pretty common technique in those days to construct parking garages in that fashion. This reminds me of a garage collapse a little over a year ago in Ottawa, Canada. And in the case of this garage, they had piled snow on the upper deck and overloaded it. And I think there was some deterioration of that parking garage in Ottawa as well that contributed to the structural deficiency and later collapse. At this point, it's not clear what led to this collapse, if it was corrosion of the post-tension members, if in fact it is post-tension, or lack of maintenance or a design defect. There's just no information available right now. But it just shows you that it's not just public infrastructure that's deteriorating and posing a hazard to the public. you've got private infrastructure as well that are having problems. It's nightmare fuel, as far as I'm concerned, to be anywhere near a parking garage collapse. So I'll continue to follow this story in Denver, and as there are additional updates, I'll do future videos letting you know what's going on. So for now, it's time for another update on recommended books. I recently had recommended several titles in the Gothic horror genre, and I forgot to mention The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This was originally published in 1891, I believe, and was controversial for a variety of reasons, but it's an excellent book. And essentially, it's about a young man who, in order to maintain his youthful looks, essentially enters into a Faustian bargain that ultimately doesn't turn out well for him at all. But I really enjoyed this book. There's passages that are just so vivid with their rich descriptions. And I just really, really like this book. So if you're wanting to check it out, I've got a link in the description. With that, I want to thank those of you who contributed to buy me a coffee. That's one of the better ways to support this channel. I also want to thank channel members who typically get to preview these videos 1 or more days in advance. And I also want to thank those of you who have contributed to Super Thanks. So stay tuned for future videos, everyone.